Hey, I'm Colin Weston with the ModGolf podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Just finished up a long-form audio podcast with Alex Prasad, who is the CEO of V1 Sports. Had a great conversation over there as far as the 30-year-old business that they have in the golf and sport technology space, what they're doing there as a teaching platform. Great conversation there. But I got Alex back on here. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about the customers they have, and they've got a two-sided marketplace that we like to talk about here, and we're going to dig into that plus so much more here. So if you're an amateur golfer, if you're a teaching professional, Alex has something for both of you and adding value to that. So to start off, hey, let's bring him on here, and there he is. Alex, thanks again for joining me on ModGolf.
Long time no see, Colin.
I know, it has been a while. Okay, we're going to get right into this here, Alex. We're going to talk about this. Pain points. I know in entrepreneurship, Startup 101, everybody teaches you, whether it's the lean startup or whatever book it would be, they talk about pain points. What's the problem that you're solving here? And yeah, on the podcast, we talked about a lot of the products that you have. We're going to show some visuals here and maybe even do a demo here. But let's start super simple here. What are the pain points that you and V1 Sports are relieving for golfers and teaching professionals?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again. Different format, Colin. And pretty simple. Golfers don't know how to find instructors, and instructors don't know how to find golfers. And that sounds silly and simple, but that's really what we're doing. That's the biggest problem that we're working on right now.
Well, you made that nice and simple there. Gio, I paused there for a second, waiting for a longer answer, but now I got to jump right back in here. Okay, so let's expand on that. So we talk about the total accessible market, both on the golf recreational playing side and also on the teaching side. So why don't you talk a bit about that as far as, you know, who is your audience here as far as getting them on the platforms that you have?
Yeah, that was a little bit too cheeky of an answer for you, Colin. Is that what the problem was? So in a purely terrestrial standpoint, right, or in person, it makes a lot of sense. There's only so many people in your area, so many instructors, so many golfers, and you find each other because you're in the same geography, basically. That's simple and easy. But online, it becomes much more difficult, clearly. So we've been working really hard for at least a year, hyper-focus on this problem. And the problem for the golfers, I want to improve. There's a million different ways to do it. There's 100,000 people on YouTube that have their tricks or whatever. How do I know I can trust that content, that instructor? And then for the instructor standpoint, as we talked about at length, on the podcast, I'm a golf instructor. I am not a digital marketing savant. I'm not an expert in gaining traction on social media as Colin is, perhaps, right? And building my own content, whatever. Where do I begin? And so our system, our platform, probably a better word, is attracting avid golfers who are seeking to improve via the V1 Golf app. It's video analysis tools, which is a do-it-yourself experience, and matching to golf instructors. And for golf instructors, we're helping them run their business, save their time. And most importantly, by seeing, it's not that we're smart or our opinion is better than anyone else's, it's that we just see more data than anybody. And we see thousands and thousands of interactions between golfers and instructors. They're basically looking at it every day saying, what's working, what's not, right? What's making happy golfers and happy instructors, and what's making them sad? And can we stop the sad things and do more of the happy things? Right. And so there's some paradoxical learnings that we've learned, like building trust on the internet is harder than in person. That's actually not paradoxical. That's obvious. But that, for instance, the best way for an instructor to win trust on the internet is to, again, counter to, I think, the commonsensical Main Street knowledge for in-person instruction, is to show some value for free online. Maybe give a quick analysis to a golfer to build some trust. Because again, the golfer doesn't know, not criticize the golfer, how to assess the quality of the instructor. It's kind of like, I know it when I see it kind of thing. And also the instructor doesn't know if the golfer is going to be any good as a customer either. So anyway, the instructor has to go first, show a little value. The golfer buys into that value, and then you begin like kind of a monetization path. But we've learned that. It's not our opinion. We've learned it from watching all these interactions, seeing where conversion rates highest and lowest, what playbooks are working for instructors and which ones aren't, frankly.
Yeah, it sounds like you're embracing a notion that another golf entrepreneur that's been very successful I had on a year or so ago, and his mantra is, I want to give away as much for free as I possibly can. and build that trust. And then people, the value is there. And then it's not about price. It is about value. And he's found that of how then he'll have people for life. Just that, we talked about that on the podcast, that lifetime value of the customer, rather than a couple of months or me getting on your app and maybe it worked or maybe it didn't, and then I'm disengaged and then I'm gone, never to return. You now are using AI, empowering that with Victor that we're going to talk about and show a quick demo here. Then you're prompting me to then incentivize me and keep making sure that I'm continuing on that journey of all those touch points rather than just falling through the cracks. One of those pain points, again, that you had mentioned earlier with your golf instructor, especially in the summertime here in North America, especially up farther north where we are, like that is prime season. You're on the lesson tee all the waking hours, so you don't have time for all the other parts of the business and follow up. So yeah, so tell us a little bit about what you're finding there, and also how that ties into a book we talked about. There we go, to bring that up. So we did discuss the Innovator's Dilemma when you guys were reinventing yourselves 2 or 3 years ago and making some difficult decisions as far as not only what you should do, but that focus piece you talked about also, and what you should not be doing or what you should not be pursuing, whether it's other sports or trying to do too much at one time. So I know it's a bit of a mouthful, tying it all together here, but using the Innovator's Dilemma here, why don't we then pull up, there we go. So we'll pull up the F1 Sports website here, and we'll actually start with the app. So why don't you tie all that together here? There, I made it super difficult for you to answer this one, but you're up for the challenge, so go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Where to start? Yeah. So the golf app, facilitates this job to be done of improvement for the golfer. There's a couple things going on in the app. One is you can get feedback from an instructor if that's the journey that you wish to take. The other is that you can do it yourself. You can use our model swings, compare yourself, to yourself, underrated, use case, compare yourself to pros, etc. And build your swing bank, right? And that's what the golf app is doing for the athlete. And from the instructor side, you mentioned being on the lesson tee too long, etc. We've seen really stark improvements in engagements, or rather re-engagement between a golfer and an instructor when the instructor simply follows up with a student. And we're doing that through some, not sexy, technologies, like we're going to send you a reminder email. Hey, you should look at your lesson recap, right? But we're also doing it with some AI, which is a little bit sexier, a little bit more interesting, on behalf of the instructors, to re-engage based on the prior conversations they had with a golfer, and just basically say, hey, how's it going? In short, right? Like to check back in with that golfer. And just as one example, we can see with our limited view of what's happening in our platform, but we can see that when an instructor sends a lesson recap, imagine your typical in-person lesson, it's an hour long, you get to the end, regardless of whether you're using technology or not, you're going to recap the lesson, right? It's just as simple as an instructor. You might as well just record that thing and send it to the golfer. It's really not going to take any more of the instructor's time. When you do that, a golfer is 2 times as likely to come back to an instructor as if you don't. And that's because using our system, there's going to be a campaign that first invites the student to connect with you in the app, that opens up the chat feature. It's going to remind you, hey, you haven't viewed that lesson recap, you should go check it out. And as we continue to push forward, Victor is the name of the feature, or our smart sales assistant, if you will, for instructors. We'll be using the user data in the platform on both sides to encourage both sides to continue to interact. And as we discussed on the podcast, this is a win-win-win. It's better for us if people are happy and interacting on the platform, both from a usage perspective and a monetization perspective. It's better for the instructor. You're going to get more business from a golfer, and most importantly, from your existing customers. Like, that's the number one place to start to try to grow your business, from people that already pay you money. And from the golfer, from an improvement perspective, deepening the connections with their instructor. So we've been really happy, lucky, fortunate, whatever the combination of those words are, to be able to operate a business where what's good for the instructor is good for the golfer, is good for us, and all those incentives are aligned. There's no beggar thy neighbor, stuff going on.
Gotcha. Okay, so tying this back into the Innovator's Dilemma, when you and the team were sitting down 3-4 years ago to then strategize of what's that next leap that the company needs to make so that you're not getting surpassed by competitors on the innovation and technology side. Tell us about that a little bit. Let's pull back the curtain. What did you decide to do? And even more so, more importantly, what are you proud of that maybe you reject it and say, no, we're not going to do that, because that could be just as impactful on your business as the things that you decide to do?
Yeah. So, with limited resources, every organization is resource constrained in some way, shape, or form, right? You have to pick and choose. I think we had more constraints than the average bear, but it's a different story.
Right.
What I see, and I think other companies, are achieving success in their own ways. But what I see is a lot of companies in the space who are giving golf pros more tools, and they go, here's a wrench, here's a screwdriver, here's an electric drill, here's a jigsaw, and more tools, right? I can do specific, 3D skeleton. It's just overload. And what the value proposition is I'm gonna give you a bunch of tools and you're gonna figure out how to monetize them. Good luck, but pay me for the tools.
Right.
And like when the pro comes preloaded at the conversation, believing the tool is valuable, it works really well. At least for the company selling the tools, right? I don't know about for the golf pro. What we did is try to look at it from the opposite view, which is monetization is one of the pros' biggest challenges, problems, like running the business part of and doing the instruction part. I said instruction, right? Not construction. Instruction part is, that's hard to balance those things. So we're going to start to take, again, it's not done with you. It's not do it yourself. It is done for you. We're going to start doing these things for you with your guidance, right? And these are jobs. The competition is it not happening. So I think we can win that competition because we're going to do it, and you weren't going to do it any other way. And so we created an invite system. We created this lesson follow-up system. These are basic things. We got a ton of mileage out of those. And then we talked a little bit about, outside of this conversation, matching the golfers and instructors, doing that in a way that doesn't take the instructor more time to start to build the relationship to sift. We've gone through all these evolutions, Colin. And just this morning, I was talking to our chief product officer, and we were laughing. We said the job to be done for the pro is to make money by doing lessons. It's not, I need leads. It's not, I need better social media. It's not any of those things. It is very simple for most golf instructors. They want more to do more lessons and earn more. And any step remote from that, has less value.
Yes.
You can say that about a lot of things, and there's universal, truths to that and so on and so forth. But fundamentally, that's what we're doing. And we're going to do those things. I keep saying every day I wake up surprised that we've eaten like another task for the pro. But that's what they want. That's not what they say, right? That's a different thing. And on the podcast, we had a long conversation about customer feedback and how you have to sift through it to get to the solution, because the customer doesn't know the solution. They know their pain point, or the gain that they're hoping to achieve. But yeah, the gain is very simple. The golf pro wants to be able to spend more time. And I say this as if I'm a golf pro. I'm not, but this is what I hear from golf pros, right? They want to do more lessons to make more money. They don't want to have to do any of the other stuff that's associated. And so we're trying to do all that other stuff to drive more lessons and more dollars to the pro's pocket.
Sounds like you spent some time with your team with, I don't know if you're familiar with Strategizer, but what they've done with their business tools, especially for startups and innovators.
On the bookshelf.
I've got them right here, but I've got a bunch of golf balls sitting on top of them, so I won't pull them out and actually show it on screen. But then with their value proposition map, it sounds like, because you use that term, jobs to be done. And sometimes those jobs can be emotional. It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical thing.
There you go.
Well, they can be tweeted. I can pull out my copy here, but I've got a bunch of golf balls that I got from Ireland, and they'll fall over the place. So you'll just have to trust me on that one, that I've got the book there too. So yes, mapping that out as a strategy rather than just blindly going down that route or basing it on assumptions that you and the team have, which might often will be incorrect because you actually have not performed or taken the time to talk to your customers, to talk to your users, to find out what they really want, getting back to those pain points again and where they are. Okay. Hey, you know what? I want to keep this a little bit more condensed than what we had on the ModGolf podcast, the audio version, which once again, I encourage all of our viewers here to go back to listen to that, because different conversation. And it was awesome with Alex there. The nuggets of wisdom and the bombs he was dropping there, you got to listen to that. So I'll include those in the show notes here down below in the description. But before we finish up here, because we did mention this in the podcast, so anybody that's come over from a listener, don't want to disappoint them. We talked about, we're going to show a few things here. And that's especially one of the areas that I struggle, and that is with ground force. My instructor that I've had in the past has talked about ground force and transfer and how sadly terrible I am, which is why I'm probably stuck at a 16 handicap and still hitting leaky little fades 220 yards off the tee here. But now that we've got the visuals here, Alex, why don't you run us through what you and the team at V1 Sports has created here with ground pressure and these and the sensors you have here?
Yeah, just very briefly, I think ground pressure is where launch data was maybe 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, or something like that. And that says it's a bleeding edge thing. It's a new thing. So we see tour players, hopping off the ground now, and that's based on this kinesiology understanding that almost all power is generated from the ground. Basically, I'm going to start butchering it, and a kinesiologist is going to write you a column, be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but that is it at a fifth grade level, right? And that's why you saw it in baseball with pitchers generating more force from their legs means a faster fastball, and we're seeing it with golfers, right, hopping off the ground and being very purposeful. And a key insight here, and you mentioned this on the podcast, I look at myself and I see the weight transfer, but it is not possible to see what these ground reactions are with the naked eye or with video. It can be very misleading. And so these sensors sense that. That was a silly sentence, Alex. But it measures those things. And you can track over time. Are you creating more or less dynamic vertical force, which can be translated into power and smash back, and then you get all your launch metrics, right? But where is it being generated from? Primarily from the feet. And if you're trying to get more distance, etc., the visual is only going to be a part of the story. What's actually how you're interacting with the ground is a larger part of the story. So yeah, we're excited to have this technology both in our Windows desktop software and in our mobile software. And it's also available to consumers, and we'll get there when we get there. It's definitely a newer technology, and there's a learning curve to understand these data points and effectuate them, which is ultimately goal.
So right now, is this available for myself? Can I order this as a recreational golfer that desperately needs to improve, that I can then get a set of these?
Yes, you can, and you can even capture it and then send it to a pro for feedback if you wanted to. So yeah, all that can be facilitated today.
Got you. So to finish up here, so I understand, is this all connected now in the sense that all the feedback, all the data we get from the sensors, does it go right to your platform, to the app, or how is that captured? And then as far as myself, if there's too much data, am I overwhelmed? How do I then, like you've done also using the power with Victor and AI, then keeping it in bite-sized chunks, the low-hanging fruit, the best way through some lessons and tips that I can then improve. So how does it all come together, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, that would be a better question for my chief product officer. No, that has been the thrust, is to have a platform that's worthy of the name. The data, the experiences need to be linked, and they need to be they feel like it's all in the same place, basically.
Yeah.
And so data transacting across the network is kind of maybe the tertiary value proposition or whatever in the background at all times. And then you can capture this data, but it can transact, right? You see lots of companies that have the data, that's great, and it can't go anywhere. It's trapped, with you, right? And that ability to share it with an instructor from the consumer side, or vice versa, right? From the instructor to the student is kind of the the cherry on top, right? Or the extra value add that makes it all go together.
Love this. What I'm shocked at, doing ModGolf on the podcast for over 8 years and a YouTube channel for 4 or 5 now, the fact I haven't had you on beforehand is almost inexcusable on my part. You got to tick all the boxes of what we're about and why we do it here with ModGolf, as far as that innovation, entrepreneurship, future of golf, how technology and culture combine to create some awesome things. So I have a feeling this is the first of many conversations over the years, Alex, that you and I are going to be having. So hey, with that, as you can see there on screen there, I have included the website for V1 Sports here, so you can go check out what they're doing. I'll also include the link down in the description to make it nice and easy. So hey, Alex, I want to thank you again, not only for the podcast earlier, but also for sharing all your insights here on the ModGolf YouTube channel. This has been amazing.
Thanks for having me, Colin. I appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure.
All right, we'll talk soon. Have a great day.
Thanks.